1957, the year I was born, so. Beautiful church, and you know, I spoke at a number of churches in my history, and I'm always, you know, in awe of people more than anything else. After all, the word church relates to a congregation of people. And people are always the most important for us, our connectivity to each other, and our connectivity, of course, to the Lord. As a Palestinian, I was born in a small, tiny area called Beit Sahour, which is actually words that relate to the house of those who stay up at night. Who are those? They are the shepherds, you know. We are the shepherd's field. My ancestors are those shepherds that were watching their sheep at night, and angels came to them and told them, go up to Bethlehem, which is literally just up the hill from where I was born. Go up there, there's a miracle, see this miracle. And do you know what they were told after they saw the miracle? They were told, go tell the world. So there's a joke about us from our village that we cannot shut up because we're told to tell the world all the time about everything. But I'll try to stick to the time I was allotted. Anyways, so I went to elementary school in Beit Sahour in the Shepherd's Field. I went to high school in Bethlehem. And when I would go to the high school in Bethlehem, on the way there, if I have time, or on the way back, which I always have time, to stop by the Church of Nativity and go in there and just sit there and meditate on what it means to be a Palestinian from that area, from Bethlehem. It's obviously not an easy thing, it's a burden, but it's also a blessing, of course. It's a blessing for me that I was born there, that I was born to descendants of those Canaanitic people, land of Canaan after all, thousands of years ago, that I have the memory of my ancestors, like, you know, people around the world. These memories of our ancestors and the knowledge we have gained through the modern archaeology and history and written record, that I recognize, for example, that Palestine is part of the Fertile Crescent. That's where humans first domesticated plants like olives, wheat, barley, lentils, chickpeas. All of this happened in this Fertile Crescent. That this Palestine is also geographically blessed, not just blessed religiously, if you want. It's geographically blessed because it's at an intersection of continents. It's where humans migrated out of Africa to the rest of the world. And so actually your ancestors, all of you here, are at some point lived in Palestine, so you're Palestinian. I'm not sure you want that privilege or that curse, whatever you consider it. But truly, all non-Africans, of course, migrated out of Africa, East Africa, precisely where humans evolved first, to the rest of the world through Palestine. Hence, it's a blessed area geographically. It's blessed geologically. We have the lowest point on Earth, a so-called Dead Sea, which is neither dead nor a sea, by the way, but near Jericho, you know? And well, it's dying now, it's shrinking significantly because Israel diverted the water of the Jordan River to the west to deny the indigenous people the water. So the Jordan River actually dropped from flowing at 1,350 million cubic meters per year to only 20 million cubic meters per year. It's no longer a river, it's a tiny stream. Actually, the place that traditionally we call it the baptism site of Jesus, where Jesus was baptized, that site, you could not have been dipping in it anymore because the wood, it's a stream. So they had to widen it both on the Jordanian side and on the Palestinian side to keep receiving visitors who want to, follow the tradition of being baptized in the Jordan River, because there is no more river. So they widened, they created these pools in which the pilgrims can be baptized in, because there's no more river really. This is the horrors of colonialism in our country, which I can talk about in a little. But to go back to this both blessing and a curse, if you want, to be born there, and to be born there also at this time. To go back to my family, just for the record, goes back historically. I can tell you my name via my ancestors. Mazin Qumsiyeh, Salam Elias, Yaqub, Yusuf, Hanna, etc. Qumsiyeh. Each one of those is one of my great grandparents. Going back to the 4th century AD. Why the 4th century, by the way, you may ask? Because then probably people were able to tell that they were Christians, because the Roman Empire, which used to feed us to the lions, became the Holy Roman Empire. And we became the religion of the state, if you want, instead of being killed. So before that, we were probably underground, if you want. But we are the first Christians. The first Christians in Palestine never went away, One time the person asked me, when did your family become Christians? I said, well, do you know Jesus? Where was he born? Who did he preach to first? It was us, before his message went to the rest of the world. So we are the original Christians, and the oldest churches on earth are in our region. Church of the Sepulchre, the Church of the Nativity, and the third holiest church, by the way, was bombed in Gaza. Third oldest holiest church was in Gaza, was bombed by the Israelis, together with 2 other churches plus about 300 mosques. But anyway, we were born in that area, we were raised in that area. Of course, when religions come, other people follow those other religions. Palestine was welcoming all of that. Even if you read the New Testament, you realize that at the time of Jesus, there were Arabs, there were Nabateans, there were Samaritans, there was Nazarene. Jesus was called Nazarene because he's from Nazareth. That's where my grandmother is from. So, people of various backgrounds were living there and still lived there for thousands of years. Palestine has always been, by the way, multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious, and even multilingual society. Before 1948, 44 languages were spoken in Palestine. We love diversity. If there is a message, by the way, that you want to take from my speech, remember that word, diversity. There is human diversity and there's also biological diversity. And we love both. As indigenous people, we love both. Colonizers don't seem to like this. They seem to destroy environment, and I'll talk about that in a minute because that's my background, is PhD in biology, and I did a number of books, hundreds of articles, and many research papers related to biodiversity and also human diversity. But let's focus on human diversity for a minute. And this is, again, my bottom line, if you want, from my story. When some people converted to other religions, we have no problem with that. We have all sorts of religions in our region of the world. We have Baha'i, we have Muslims, we have Christians of various denominations. My own family, by the way, My father's side of the family is Greek Orthodox. My mother's side of the family is Lutheran. Those are the extremes of Christianity for those of you who don't know. You know, so one is very conservative, one is very liberal. Okay? Anglicans, I think, are somewhere in the middle. But anyways, okay, but that's not all. I mean, my sister went to Utah and she became a Mormon. God bless her soul. And, you know, I have another sister whose daughter became Catholic with her husband and everything. I have distant cousins who became Muslim. My wife, who is there, Jessie, she's Chinese-American. Her family is Confucius followers, etc. My son dated a Jewish girl, so our family is mixed. And you may ask me what I am? I'm confused. I have a right to be. But anyways, no, but what's wrong with that? What is wrong with having diversity? Why do some people, for the life of me, I could never understand people who want to live with their own kind, so to speak, all white, all Aryan, all German-speaking, all Jewish, all this, all that. To me, that's a pathology. That's not healthy. Diversity is strength. Would I want to live with people just like me? Whatever that is, I haven't figured out myself yet. Sometimes I can't live with myself, you know? So let alone try to find people that are like me. Diversity is healthy. Plus, it makes life interesting. Life would be boring if we all lived with people who think exactly like we do, right? Diversity is strength. That's human diversity, and that's natural also. I mean, if you go to a forest here in your country and you see a forest with only one type of tree, you don't say that's a healthy forest. You say that's a forest that's troubled, that is in decline. Diversity, trees even feed each other. You know, different trees feed each other, we found biologically. That diversity, biological diversity, is healthy for the environment. That's why we call it an ecosystem. You know, it's a system. It is not a monorail, you know. So, for me, as a Palestinian, I've always valued diversity. And all Palestinians do that. The Palestinian Muslims here that I met, Palestinian Muslims in Palestine, every single one of us values diversity. We have no problem with diversity. We also welcome immigrants, by the way. We have no problem with immigrants. Why do you think in the old city of Jerusalem, there's a Christian quarter, a Muslim quarter, a Jewish quarter, and what's the fourth quarter? Armenian. Of course, Armenians are Christian. But, you know, we give them a quarter of our old city. We welcome them because they became indigenous like us. They learned the language, thanks for speaking that beautiful language of Maori. And they become like us. What's the difference? So that, I mean, my friend in school was Armenian. I didn't know even he was Armenian because he spoke Arabic at school. And one time I was in his home and he was speaking to his mother in this language. I said, what is that? He said, it's Armenian. It's where my ancestors come from. I said, this is nice. So, you know, it is this diversity that is so healthy and that makes us all love one another as any religion calls us for. By the way, what is the golden rule of all religions? The golden rule is you treat others like you want to be treated, or don't treat others like you don't want to be treated. It's common sense. Even atheists with ethics believe in the same thing. Why, if I don't want to be killed or tortured or kicked out of my house, why would I want to do it to somebody else? It's common sense ethics, you know. You don't have to be even religious to believe in this common sense ethical principles. So as we grew up in that country, valuing diversity, did we ever have any problems between each other? The answer is no. You must be surprised at this, because again, you hear your mainstream media here, maybe in the West, CNN, Fox News, they make it look like these people have been fighting each other as if they are the other, you know? No, sorry. We have the most peaceful country on earth. Sorry to say this, but this is true. If you take away this conflict, you will have to go back to another few hundred years to find another conflict, which is the Crusaders. The Crusaders also came to us from outside, not from inside, not internally between Christian, Muslims, Jews who were living in the country. No, there was a political idea in Europe. The Pope, I guess, wanted to resolve differences between the principalities and kingdoms. Instead of fighting each other, he told them, go fight over there. Fight in the Holy Land. Liberate the holy site. Sorry, but the holy sites, the Christian holy sites, were under our rule, under Christian rule before the Crusaders. Before the Crusaders. Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Nativity Church. Who was running those? We, the Christians of that area, of various denominations. Okay? And so there was no need to liberate anything. The reverse happened when the Crusaders came in the name of Christianity. And for the life of me, I could never understand somebody who spills blood in the name of Christianity or Islam or Judaism or anything else. They came with this idea, political idea, had nothing to do with Christianity. Maybe I'm reading the different Bible than they are. But the Bible is very clear. Read Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. What does it say? It said, you have an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I tell you what, somebody hits you on the left cheek, turn the right cheek to them. Somebody asks for your shirt, give them your jacket. It's a pacifist religion. We don't believe in violence. Period. End of story. So how could people support colonization, which is what it was in the Crusader period, and ethnically cleansing people from their land? And by the way, the Crusaders didn't just kill Muslims. They killed also Jews and Christians of other denominations, including my ancestors, who happened to fight with the Muslims against the Crusaders. Because, again, logically, we like diversity. Why are we trying to impose this political idea on us? The same thing happened with Zionism. We have no problem with Jews. We have Palestinian Jews, native indigenous Jews. Palestine, after all, is a holy site for Judaism. And my grandfather's best friend in school was Jewish at the time of the Ottoman Empire. We lived together, we have no problem. As I said, also any immigrant from abroad, Russian Jews came in the 19th century with the pogroms in Russia. We welcome them. Many people came, Ethiopian Christians, Circassians, Druze, came into the country and they became integrated, they became part of the fabric and the mosaic that is Palestine, beautiful mosaic. Then comes this idea called Zionism, which says, nice diversity, but we don't like it. We want a Jewish state. And of course, what does that mean? We want a Jewish state in a country that has 3% Jewish population. 3% when Zionism was created in the late 19th century. So how are you going to make a country that's 3% Jewish into the Jewish state of Israel? Well, you had to remove the native people, indigenous people had to go. Kill them, ethnically cleanse them. We don't care, as long as they are out of our way, so that we can make our Jewish state. It's a political idea, again, nothing to do with Judaism. A chief rabbi of Jerusalem was against it. Essentially all the indigenous Jews were against it. All of them. It's a European idea. I trace the idea actually to the British Empire. You'd be surprised. Some of you may be thinking Balfour Declaration 1917, when British Empire committed to Zionism. But actually they started much earlier. It was a British citizen who happened to be the second governor of South Australia. His name is Lieutenant Colonel George Gower. There's a city named after him in Australia. The British government hired him to do the study of how to do Jewish colonization in Palestine to serve the empire. And literally, that's the task they tasked him with. And he produced his study in 1845. 1845. The study was titled Tricolonization of Syria in the East, Observations and Practical Suggestions in Furtherance of Establishment of Jewish Colonies in Palestine as the Most Sensible Remedy for the Ills of Asiatic Turkey. This is the title of, they used to make these long, long titles for their books and monographs. And this was a practical manual for how to colonize Palestine. It's available on the web if you want to look it up. The British government adopted it in 1847, adopted this in the parliament and allocated money for it. 1847. Goller, by the way, said that one of the two objections he thought would be difficult to accomplish this task. One is convincing enough Jews that it's good for them. Second is convincing the Christian world that this advances their empires. He says the second one is less difficult than the first one. I mean, think about that for a minute. In fact, when it was approved at the parliament, two of the objections were the only two Jewish members of the British Parliament at the time. They said, what do you want to do to us? Ship us to Palestine like you shipped those criminals to Australia and the penal colonies? After all, this guy is hired because of his expertise in colonization in Australia. So, you see, this is history. This is our history. This is your history also. And this is a point that I also want to emphasize. Why should it be important to you? Beyond the religious significance of Palestine, and that Palestine is being ethnically cleansed of its indigenous people who happen to be Christian, Muslim, Baha'i, Druze, all the other religions. Why should it be important? Why should you care about Palestine? Well, as I said, Palestine geographically is very important for the world. It's at the intersection of continents. It's where humans migrated out of Africa. Even birds today, European, Asian birds, migrate through Palestine to Africa yearly. 500 million birds pass through Palestine. It's a very pivotal area, geologically, strategically, geographically, in every other sense. And if you don't believe me, check the news also. Once this genocide accelerated, by the way, the genocide was happening to us from the beginning of colonization, and especially when the British ruled Palestine in 1919. That's when they started killing Palestinians and ethnically cleansing us, when they gave Palestine to the Zionist movement in 1920. They appointed the British Zionist, Jewish Zionist by the name of Herbert Samuel to be quote-unquote High Commissioner of Palestine. He was Zionist. He represented the World Zionist Organization in Paris when they met in Paris after the First World War. They basically, the way that the British adopted the program of meticulously removing us from our land and handing that land to the Zionists, which was started in the 1920s, and the first apartheid laws in Palestine in the 1920s, copied from other apartheid laws. As you know, all these apartheid laws, whether in South Africa or Queensland in Australia, have the same language. Sometimes I wonder which came first, that one or that one. Is it Palestine first or Queensland first? But anyways, the first segregation of public schools, for example, happened under Herbert Samuel. Public schools, where he said Jewish schools should be under Zionist control, all non-Jews should go to other schools by themselves. That's the first time they separated us from our fellow humans, Jews who happen to live in the country, in 1920-21. This is reality that most people don't understand, and that apartheid in our country, which has a long history now of over 100 years, was also accompanied by a genocide and an ecocide. Genocide, for example, which had a peak in 1948 and then have another peak now. In 1948, 15,000 Palestinians were killed. One of them happens to be a friend of my mother. She was from Dar Yassin. Her friend was named Hayab al-Bisi. She was 18 years old, a teacher in Dar Yassin. She was butchered with her students. My mother is Christian, her friend was Muslim, and they were going to the same school in Jerusalem, teacher school. I was also a high school teacher in Jerusalem, believe it or not, but I'm not allowed to even enter Jerusalem. I'm not allowed to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of our most significant churches, because I'm not Jewish. Because Israel wants to make Jerusalem a Jewish city, whatever that means. So we have a history of this, and it's a history that impacts billions of people, Christians, Muslims, other people, because it's a moral issue. It's not just an issue of Palestinians. Also, it is because it's so significant area, it could lead to a world war. The Crimean War, by the way, was started in Palestine. I don't know, you should read about that history. I don't have time to go through it. But that was really the first global war in the mid-19th century. Now they call it First World War, Second World War being the ones in the 20th century. But you know, if you think of how those started, there's now elements of starting like that in our region. There's already beginning, you know, with Iran, with Syria, with Lebanon, with Yemen, with the US and England bombing our countries in the Arab world. It's happening as we speak. And this could expand into Russia and China and other places. And do you know who will be a winner in the next world war? You couldn't have predicted in previous world wars who will be a winner. But I can predict for you who's the next winner. The next winner will be cockroaches. Cockroaches. Because they're resistant to nuclear radiation. There's no going to be winners and losers like in the past. So you here and every human being should be working like I work 16 hours a day now on this issue, 7 days a week, because it's so urgent, because it's urgent for the future of humanity, not just for us in that pivotal part of the world, but it's for the future of humanity. You should insist. We have only two roads. The road that I propose, which is diversity, biological diversity, human diversity, or the road of continued colonization that now reaching a dead end. That's why there is genocide in Gaza with 15,000 plus children and many others under the rubble still. We don't know, if they're dead or alive. 15,000 children in 7 months. That means in the time that we're sitting in this church for a couple of hours, that means about 7 children will be killed in Gaza. So we have to realize that this is happening as we speak. A genocide is ongoing as we speak. And this genocide is supported by what's unique about this genocide. It's supported by several countries. when King Leopold of Belgium killed Congolese people, This was localized, Belgium and Congo. Now we have a coalition, if you want, of Western governments that support and fund this genocide and protect the criminals. That includes your government here in New Zealand. I'm sorry to say that. They support it. And you need to speak to your government about it. The people are with us. The people are for human rights, are for ending the genocide, are for a ceasefire, as you rightly said, Chris. Everybody here, logically, if there are children being killed, ceasefire. What's the big deal? Why isn't the New Zealand government, the Australian government, all the Western governments, why don't they call for an immediate ceasefire and cut off all bilateral relations until there is a ceasefire of this ongoing slaughter, basically? Okay, final thing I want to say, since I kind of was a bit depressing on my talk, I want to switch a little bit, talk a bit more positively, last two points. So, what is our role? What is your role? What's mine? Our role, again, is to enhance diversity, right? Because that's the ailment that ails us. And colonization, of course, damages diversity. So we have to decolonize, right? Decolonization is important. And to decolonize our country, which will be a win-win for everybody, whether they are Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whoever is living in the atheists who live in the country, because now everybody is targeted who's not following the Zionist dream, the Zionist illusion of creating a Jewish state in Palestine. Palestine will go back and must go back to being multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious, multilingual society like it was before. Just decolonization. And anybody who wants to live there is welcome to live there. I have no problem, as I said. We have no problem as Palestinians. But they have to live in equality. They cannot say, well, I'm superior. They cannot say, well, I want racist laws that say this land is Jewish and we have to take it away from the Palestinians. They have actual laws like that. They have laws copied from Nazi Germany, racial laws, about intermarriage and things like that. Amazing, they copied some laws from Germany in its worst periods in its history. So that's what we push for. How do we push for that? What do we do? We cannot just keep complaining about that other. We start by liberating our own minds. Our institute, Palestine Institute for Biodiversity and Sustainability, has a motto. The motto is respect. First, we respect ourselves. We start with ourselves. Everybody has to look in the mirror. In Islam, by the way, Maher can tell you better than I do. Of course, the Prophet Muhammad had a saying that basically, the jihad, the greater jihad is to struggle here. In your own heart and your own mind. That's a bigger jihad. And so we have to struggle within ourselves to liberate our minds. So I wrote a paper about this, a research paper about liberation from mental colonization. So respect for ourselves, that we can change our own circumstances. We're not eternal victims or anything like that. We have circumstances difficult, but we can liberate ourselves. A second level of respect is respect other human beings. Once you respect yourself, you can respect other people, regardless of their religion or background or whatever. And once you respect other people, you can also respect other living things. And not only other living things, but nature as a whole, including the rivers and the rocks and the sea and everything else. This planet Earth that we, the indigenous people, and I'm sure the Maori also believe in the same way, that it's Mother Earth, Mother Earth. It's our mother. We cannot trash it, we cannot destroy it. In all its forms, whether it's mountains, it's rivers, it's Earth actually breathes, We have to protect it. These levels of respect, we teach our children. We have, at our institute, we have programs of education for children. I'm at the University, Bethlehem University, by the way, was started by the Pope when he visited Palestine in 1964. And when in follow-up correspondence, he asked what we wanted. We said, help us build a university. And they did, and it was opened in 1973. It was the first Palestinian university. Well, Bir Zaid sometimes argues with us about whether they were the first or not. But anyways, I'm biased a little bit. But this is who we are, and we work with our students at the universities. I also teach at Bir Zaid University, actually. So we teach the students at the university, develop those respect levels. And we are interested in sustainable human and natural communities, so we do agriculture. We have a community garden. There are 3 refugee camps in Bethlehem. Some of the refugees can come to our garden, plant vegetables, food sovereignty, things like that. We work with women to empower women so that they can produce products by their own hands from organic material, plants in the garden, etc. Grow their own vegetables even in their homes, in the refugee camps, on the ceiling, roofs, on the sides of the buildings, etc. We work with everybody, and we welcome volunteers of all age categories and from all over the world. We have volunteers so far from 45 countries, from age 9 to 90, and they do work in the garden or work with us on various things. How many of you have been to Palestine, by the way? Raise your hand. Wow, that's a good number. So talk to those people, ask them. The experience is always transformative and gives you a lot of hope in humanity. It doesn't give you depression just because it's under colonization or occupation, because you will meet the local people. And when you meet the local people, you realize how hopeful we are, how optimistic we are, and that we believe in this issue that I told you about, which is diversity. So the website for our institute is simple to remember: Palestine Nature, one word.org. You can find us on the web, and email me at info@palestinenature.org. I will pass a sign-up sheet with the emails also, if you could put your email on it, but make it legible, or you will never hear from me again. But that way we can stay in touch. I hope I was in the right time, or did I talk too much? As I told you in the beginning, we shepherds talk too much. We were told to talk too much. But what we see and what we hear. But also it's a double whammy for me because I'm a professor. So what do we professors tell talk, So thank you very much for this invitation, for this experience in this beautiful church. God bless your efforts, every one of you. And please help us achieve that goal of an integrated earth with no borders, no wars, no conflicts, where we protect this beautiful planet. Climate change and other things are coming at us with a vengeance, and we really have a lot of work to do. So join this struggle, join this work. Thank you very much.